we need to get you to respond to the survey that LBC 97.3 has done after the shooting of Mark Duggan. Would you say that currently you sort of trust the police more or less than you did 3 years ago? And 1 in 5, 22 people say they trust your service less. Why is that, Commissioner?
Well, I suppose there are a lot of things, Nick, as people will know. I mean, the shooter, Mark Duggan, obviously has caused some concerns. Although I have to say, I think, we have to keep reminding people that that inquest did find that this was a lawful killing. But certainly the family have not been reassured by the verdict, and we have to accept that. So that's caused some concerns. But as I've said a few times, I mean, that's on the back of a long history in London, particularly people from a black background having a bad experience with Metropolitan Police. So I understand in that context why there have been concerns. Now we've got Plebgate, which is still not yet finally resolved. So I think from a number of points of view, some people surveyed now may have less confidence than they did before. I have to accept that reality. We're doing a lot, I think, to make them, hopefully, give them more confidence in the future. We are seeing crime come down. I think you'll hear some great stories today, and you have over the last 24 hours, of what our officers do day by day. You were kind enough last week to have on some of our bravery awards, and they're pretty exceptional people. So, it's an awful lot we do. We get 5.5 million telephone calls a year. Sometimes we get it wrong, and sometimes we have to take it on the chin if we do, and then improve afterwards. But I think we've got some good things we do well.
You mentioned Plebgate. How did your meeting with Andrew Mitchell go?
We've not had one yet. What I've said is, first of all, I've publicly apologised. I've written to Mr Mitchell. And after the misconduct processes are out of the way, then, of course, I've offered to meet him, and we'll see how we arrange that later.
He's not taking you up on your offer, then?
Well, to be fair, the offer is that we will meet after the misconduct process. Bearing in mind, Nick, that first of all, we've had PC Wallace, who's pleaded guilty and is yet to be sentenced, so I have to be a little bit careful on the 6th of February. And then we have some other officers who are subject to misconduct processes, which are internal in the Met, and when they're out of the way, then it seems to me a good time for me to meet with Mr Mitchell.
Commissioner, one of the other questions we asked in the LBC 97.3 poll was how recently Londoners had seen a police officer, and many reported they hadn't seen one on their streets for at least a week, and in some instances considerably longer. Is this the real impact of the cuts that you're wrestling with?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I'm a bit surprised by the survey, if I'm honest, Nick, because, we all wander around London. And even if you see a police officer in a car, then, I would have thought people would have seen them less than a week. I accept that probably on foot it's not as likely. But what we know is that even though we are taking some savings, within the next 2 years we'll have more officers. Now, I think you're going to have a caller for me later about, because we're recruiting.
Yes.
So over the next 2 years we're going to have an extra 5,000 recruits. But we're going to position those new recruits by putting them out on the streets in neighbourhood policing and response, about 2,600 more into our neighbourhoods. So I think what you see is already we've moved officers from the back office to the front, and then we've got the savings out. Then we take that money that we're saving and spend it on some new recruits.
The caller you referred to, actually, we're having trouble getting hold of him at the moment. It's a gentleman who I know he's Asian and he wants to join the force. He was going to ask you how welcoming it will be. But hold that thought, because you are indeed with me for, I think, a whole hour, aren't you, later in the week, the day of the Bravery Award. So we'll definitely get
That's
you
right. I thought you were just about to say another hour now.
No, I've only got you for another couple of minutes. So I want to come to the final point, which is this ongoing row, which you had a bit of a battle of the Bernards with Bernard Jenkin and that panel of MPs. This is about the suggestion, well, in fact, it would seem the reality, Commissioner, that police fiddle crime stats.
Well, what we've said is that, first of all, if you bear in mind what happened there, the Public Affairs Select Committee a few weeks ago had one of our officers who went before them, together with a retired officer and somebody from West Midlands Police, expressing concerns about the way that stats are recorded. And that's a concern for me. So we are going to, we started already an internal inquiry, and I've also invited Her Majesty's Inspector to come in and prioritise our crime recording, because they're doing they're doing a review of all forces this year. So they're starting that at the beginning of February. So we'll try and get to the bottom of these allegations. But if it's true that our figures were fiddled, then they've got no support from me. I've said time after time.
Do you think it is true, Commissioner?
I don't know. That's why we're having an inquiry. They will always be inaccurate. There's always inaccuracy in these figures. First of all, we know, for example, in serious sexual offences, 85% of people don't even bother reporting these things. We know that sometimes there are inaccuracies in the figures, so I accept that entirely. And over the years, they have been found to be inaccurate at times.
I mean, one of your predecessors, Lord Stevens, says it's been going on since he became a boy copper.
Yeah, but what I've said as well, and this is, for me, really fundamental, Nick, is that we need accurate crime stats. There is no point in having inaccurate crime stats for two reasons. One, the victim deserves it. What's the point in not recording something that somebody's been when they've been a victim of crime? And as importantly, I want to keep coming to you and saying we're reducing crime.
As it happens, that might ring hollow, Commissioner.
Well,
you
exactly.
Can understand how that
is
listeners.
That is exactly my point. if we can't rely on the stats, how can I make any claims about reducing crime? Now I want to come to you and say we've had almost a 30-year low. Biggest crime reduction for 30 years, very big crime reductions. And if we can't rely on the figures, then that makes that a nonsense. So for me, it's vitally important that we get to the bottom of these claims. We need to find out, are they sometimes they're inaccurate, or are they entirely unbelievable? Now, I think it's hard to believe that they're entirely unbelievable, as is entirely possible that there are some inaccuracies in them. And we're going to get to the bottom of it.